Andor has never been a series chock full of Star Wars Easter eggs, but I still picked out a decent amount from the second season. Here are the bigger ones I caught. The Ferrix anvil used by the Time Grappler in Season 1 is heard at the start of the episode to indicate the passage of a year's worth of time, which I think is a great touch. Cassian steals a TIE fighter prototype from the planet Sienar. Sienar is a new planet to Star Wars, but Sienar Fleet Systems has long been the company that created and manufactured the TIE fighter line. SFS was owned and operated by the Sienar family. I wonder if this world is one they were given by the Empire, and they simply named it after themselves. The logo seen on Nia's shoulder is a stylized version of the classic Sienar Fleet Systems logo. Nia tells Cassian the password for the night is Kafrene, which is likely a reference to the Ring of Kafrene that was first created for Rogue One. The little droid in the TIE hangar looks like he's got feet which are similar to the massive walking arms of the all-terrain heavy hauler seen in The Last Jedi. The TIE prototype is not called by name in the episode, but the StarWars.com databank confirmed that it's a TIE Avenger. In Star Wars Legends, the Avenger was designed to be more capable against Rebel starfighters, being faster, more heavily armed, and equipped with shields, which most TIE fighter models didn't have. They had a top speed of 1,300 kilometers per hour, making them even faster than a TIE Interceptor, but they were significantly more expensive than even the TIE Defender, so the high price tag coupled with the fact that the prototype was stolen might explain why it never went into mass production. Cassian is nearly killed by a range trooper wielding a rocket launcher. They were first seen on the planet Vandor in Solo: A Star Wars Story and are a cold weather variant of stormtroopers, so it makes sense that they would be on Sienar. As he flies out of the Sienar test facility, Cassian is pursued by two TIE Advanced V1s. They were an experimental TIE most frequently seen used by the Galactic Empire's Inquisitorius. It took design inspirations from another Sienar Fleet Systems ship, the Scimitar, which was famously used by Darth Maul 10 years before the outbreak of the Clone Wars. Their appearance here is appropriate since this seems to be a place where TIE prototypes are developed, but also because they were first unveiled in Star Wars Rebels in the same year of the timeline, 4 years before the Battle of Yavin. We see Mon Mothma's homeworld, Chandrila, for the very first time in live action. It's mostly only been seen in comics or mentioned in books so far. We also meet her aide, Erskine. He first appeared in the Star Wars Rebels episode Secret Cargo during Mothma's escape from Coruscant and mission to Dantooine. On the planet Mina Rao, Bix is shown having nightmares of Dr. Gorst, who tortured her in several episodes of Andor Season 1. The arrival of the Empire to the planet is heralded by a Gazanti-class cruiser. They served a variety of functions for the Empire, including personnel transport, but also the delivery of TIE fighters or walkers to battle, or they could even be transformed into listening stations. When Cassian arrives at the rendezvous point, he finds a crashed ship. I believe it's the same ship Brasso, Bix, and the others used to escape Ferrix in the final episode of Season 1. In a mountain fortress, we catch up with the Empire and see an obscure Imperial character named Orson Krennic. Obviously, he's not an Easter egg or a sly reference. I'm just really excited to see Ben Mendelsohn back already. He talks about the planet Gorman, which has been brought up several times in Andor already. Of course, this season builds up to the Gorman massacre, an event from Star Wars history that was first referenced in the 90s. The Gorman's connection with fashion was previously established in the High Republic novel Convergence, which mentioned Gorman silk and velvet. Krennic talks about the Death Star project by referring to it as the Energy Initiative. This connects back to the novel Catalyst, where we saw Galen Erso's work on Project Stardust, believing he was creating a form of renewable and sustainable energy for the galaxy and not a planet-killing super laser. Cassian learns that the rebels he's captured by are with Maya Pei. She was first mentioned in the conversation between Saw Gerrera and Luthen in Season 1 about the various rebel cells. While the two groups argue with and shoot one another, one of them screams Ichuta, a very rude Huttese swear we first heard in The Empire Strikes Back. When Cassian escapes, we see that he has been trapped on Yavin 4 this entire time, a stone's throw from the Massacre temples that will one day house the Rebel Alliance's secret base. By the way, the creature that attacks all of the trapped rebels is called a Dudar in the subtitles, which is a new creature. During Lita and Stekken's wedding reception, Davos Skolden unveils an ancient statue that was stolen from Chandrila 25,000 years earlier by Rakatan invaders. They were mentioned in Season 1 as well, but now we have a timeline for their existence, which lines up with the reign of the Rakatan Infinite Empire in Star Wars Legends. The wedding ends with a new remix of Niamos, the song from Season 1. I believe this is the 4th version of the song we've heard. When Bix and Cassian go shopping, Cassian picks up some Pizzos. Those stimulants were first mentioned several times in Andor Season 1, most notably by Cassian's lady friend on Niamos. Bix buys some melons, and the shopkeeper says they're fresh from Yukio. That planet was first created for the Legends novel The Last Command, the final book in the original Thrawn trilogy. Its primary export was food. When Cyril enters the Gorman Imperial building after hours, the guards are seen watching pod racing, an obscure little sport that's apparently so fast only one human has ever won a championship. The Gorman Front is the name of the rebel cell on the planet Gorman. It was first mentioned in Season 1. ISB agent Hirt was Dedra's aide during Season 1. It appears that he's received a promotion in the past couple years, now sitting in Agent Blevins' former seat. Mon Mothma talks with a senator that looks awfully familiar. He is simply listed as Senator number 2, 3, or 4 in the credits, but it's possible he could be Chancellor Villachim from The Force Awakens, or he might just be some other Tarsunt politician. Mothma mentions seeing an 18% rise of crime on Tapasi, a planet that appeared in a handful of legend stories. The Tarkin massacre on Gorman is mentioned and even detailed a couple of times. This was the original Gorman massacre of Star Wars Legends. I assumed it had been taken out of canon when Star Wars Rebels detailed a Gorman atrocity in the year 2 BBY, but no. Now we can sadly say there were 2 Gorman massacres. The details provided by the bellhop line up with the legend story involving Grand Moff Tarkin landing a ship on peaceful protesters shortly after the rise of the Empire. Saw Gerrera's base of operations is shown to be on Dakar, the same base that the Resistance will one day use as seen in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Saw as having Wilman teaches people how to steal rhydonium. That volatile fuel has appeared in several Star Wars stories, including The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, and The Mandalorian. It's dangerous and it doesn't take much to cause an explosion. As Clea scans her radio, we can hear stations on Ryloth and Corellia. Corellia was the homeworld of Han Solo, as seen in Solo: A Star Wars Story. Ryloth was the homeworld of the Twi'leks and has been seen in the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. The hosts of Good Morning Coruscant talk about being excited to attend the Imperial Ball. That event was first seen in canon in a short story which stated it happened every year on the anniversary of the Empire's founding. It also appeared in Legends as a monthly gathering, but since this is all surrounding the swearing in of Imperial senators, I would assume this is a yearly anniversary of the rise of the Empire. On Dakar, it looks like we can see the partisans eating a grilled massif, the dog-like creatures seen on Tatooine with the Tusken Raiders. During the rhydonium heist, Saw talks about being put in a work camp in the Andor jungle. That planet was his homeworld as seen in the Clone Wars. He also calls rhydonium his sister, which is kind of a crazy thing to say on its own, but it's even more unhinged when you know about his real sister. Her name was Steela, and she led the resistance against the droid army on their planet during the Clone Wars. She died defending Onderon, and her loss affected Saw from that point forward. She was his moral compass, and he never forgot about her. One of my favorite additions the Rogue One comic adaptation made to the movie is that his final word was his sister's name. Anyway, Saw has traded a stable and strong real sister in the form of Steela for a volatile, explosive, and dangerous metaphorical sister in the form of rhydonium. The planet Steergard has been mentioned several times in Andor already, but this is the first time we're seeing it. The Rimma trade route has also been a part of Star Wars since the Legends days, where Gorman was established as part of the route, so it makes sense that Cassian would meet up with Luthen somewhere near Gorman. Some Corellian hounds can be seen on Steergard, creatures that were first seen in Solo: A Star Wars Story, but also appeared in Andor Season 1 on Ferrix. Mon Mothma bumps into Bail Organa at Skolden's art gallery. Of course, he was the senator of Alderaan and adoptive father to Leia. Perrin asks where Breha is, and she was the queen of Alderaan and adoptive mother to Leia as seen in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. At Davos Skolden's party, Legret asks Hirt and Young what they're drinking. Hirt tells them they're drinking In Skolden's gallery, we can see a spherical art piece that looks an awful lot like the second Death Star. I'm viewing this as a subtle reminder of the current Death Star that's under construction. We can see a Jabiim freight transport arriving at the Yavin Base. That ship was first created for Obi-Wan Kenobi and was last seen under Roken's command. Maybe this is his ship. He did tell Obi-Wan he was only getting started in his fight against the Empire. Bistan can be seen walking around the base in the background. He was the Iakaru first seen in Rogue One who goes down fighting in the Battle of Scarif. We can also see a Tarsunt mechanic in a handful of shots. They seem to love working in that position for the Rebel Alliance and the Resistance. On Gorman, Imperial newscasters can be seen spreading propaganda with the help of camera droids similar to the ones that fly around the Galactic Senate in The Phantom Menace and other Star Wars stories. Partagaz says Krennic has had the lab on Edu working overtime to find a suitable replacement for Calkite. We see that lab in Rogue One, where Jyn briefly reunites with her father, Galen Erso. The security gates seen outside the Imperial headquarters on Gorman are similar to those we've seen in other Imperial installations like the Fortress Inquisitorius on Nur from Obi-Wan Kenobi. The concept of healing through the Force has been seen in many Star Wars stories like The Mandalorian, The Rise of Skywalker, Tales of the Empire, and tons of Legends examples. I like the idea of this Force healer who doesn't have the strength of a Jedi, but she's just doing her best, and yet she can still sense the Force working through Cassian. AL-1L3, or Allie, is a droid that can be seen walking around the Yavin Base. She was first created for The Rise of Skywalker as part of the Resistance, and was said to have been witness to the Kessel droid uprising, which inspired her to rebuild herself similar to L337. General Draven returns to Andor. Played by Alistair Petrie, Davitz Draven first appeared in Rogue One, and his story continues on in the Star Wars comics, where he is eventually killed by Darth Vader himself. General Dodonna is also given a mention. That character first appeared in A New Hope, but was brought back for Rogue One, where he was played by Ian McElhinney. Tony Gilroy said in an interview that he had hoped to bring many Rogue One characters back for Andor, but the scheduling didn't work out for all of them. But for some Rogue One elements that did return for the series, Cassian has his U-Wing already, which I assume is the exact same ship he flies in the movie. We see the return of the Imperial KX security droids. Their brutal attacks line up with how they fight in the Star Wars Jedi series of video games. Andor gives us a new introduction for K2SO, which overrides a one-shot comic that originally told that story. And of course, the entire second episode of the third arc tells the story of the Gorman massacre. This version of it was first established in the Star Wars Rebels episode Secret Cargo, which was the first story to place the event in the year 2 BBY, and now we can see it in all of its horror. In response to the massacre, Mon Mothma delivers a speech, holding Emperor Palpatine responsible for the attack. We saw a bit of that speech in the same Star Wars Rebels episode, or maybe they're meant to be two separate speeches made in very quick succession to one another. Either way, the general messaging of the speech is the same. Inside the Senate, we can see Imperials in blue uniforms. That color has classically been reserved for members of Senate security going all the way back to the Phantom Menace. The Senate is being broadcast across SNN, which is written in Arabesh. I assume that stands for Senate News Network. After Mothma's speech and escape, it's said she's going to be brought somewhere else to deliver a new speech with a Gold Squadron escort. Once again, this is all from the Star Wars Rebels episode Secret Cargo. We see her and Gold Squadron travel to Dantooine with the help of Harrison Dula and the crew of the Ghost to finally rally the individual Rebel cells across the galaxy into a single Rebel alliance. Cyril's blaster from Season 1 makes a reappearance after having quite the journey. It was taken by Cassian from Ferrix to Aldhani. After the heist, he left it on Niamos. After his escape from Narkina 5, he passed it on to Melshi. And now Melshi has finally delivered Cyril Karn's blaster to the Rebellion. Throughout these final episodes, we get references to the Empire collecting Kyber on Jedha. We see Saw attacking their Kyber shipments on Jedha in Rogue One. Lonnie Young directly connects the Public Order Resentencing Directive to the Death Star as well. The audience knew prisoners were building parts for the Death Star thanks to Season 1, but I don't think Luthen had ever directly connected PORD to the Empire's mystery project before. Young also mentions labor camps. I think Narkina 5 would fall into that category, but we also see Jyn Erso working at one on Wobani, which is discussed further in the book Rebel Rising. At Imperial Detention Center and Labor Camp LEG-817, prisoners were said to make machine parts, and it's not a stretch to assume they would also be installed into the Death Star. After Luthen leaves Lonnie dead on a park bench, his body is found by a Tuca Cat, creatures that were first created for the Clone Wars animated series. Luthen shows Dedra a knife called a Nautolan Bleeder. Nautolans were alien species made famous by Kit Fisto in the prequels, and you can see a carving of a Nautolan on the hilt of the blade. On display in the shop, you can see a headpiece belonging to Naboo royalty like Queen Amidala in The Phantom Menace, and it's out next to what looks an awful lot like a Gungan skull, which is maybe the worst thing Luthen has. There are a ton of other cool Easter eggs in the shop, like the Keldor mask, the Mortis tablets, and a Twi'lek Calicori, but those were all present in Season 1 as well. I'll link to a video I did about all those items if you want to see more. After Luthen stabs himself, he is taken to a hospital. The top of the building is labeled with the name Lina So. This might be my favorite Easter egg of the season. Lina So was the name of the Chancellor of the Republic during the High Republic era. She presided over the Nile threat as seen in the High Republic Publishing Initiative. It makes sense that she might have a building or two named after her, so maybe this is Lina So Memorial Hospital or something like that. Inside, you can see a being floating in Bacta, which is exactly the kind of thing you should see in a Star Wars hospital. In flashbacks, Luthen sells a Devaronian victory necklace to a local art dealer. Devaronians were the horned beings first seen in the cantina in A New Hope. In another flashback, we see Luthen and Kleya attack Imperials on Naboo, which was confirmed in the StarWars.com episode guide. It's fitting that one of their first acts against the Empire would have been on the Emperor's homeworld. The final arc features the first appearance of Comp Force, the ISB's military branch. They were first created for a role-playing sourcebook in the 90s, which established their kind of helmetless stormtrooper look. Major Partagaz orders Hirt to tell people Kleya is diseased so people will turn her in. This goes all the way back to his first scene in Season 1, where he compares the ISB's responsibilities to that of a health provider. While Cassian, Melshi, and K2SO gamble together, they drink Revnog. That alcoholic drink was first created for Andor Season 1. When Cassian leaves Yavin to rescue Kleya, an angry voice tells him to return immediately. That's the voice of Tony Gilroy, who also tried to stop Rogue One from leaving in the movie Rogue One. K2 claims the last time he was on Coruscant, he was part of a military parade where the Emperor saw him and 200 other KX units. I imagine this was for an Empire Day parade, a yearly celebration of the end of the Clone Wars and the creation of the Galactic Empire. Parades like that have been seen in Star Wars Rebels and the flagship Star Wars comic run by Charles Soule. As Cassian and his crew escape Coruscant with Kleya, several police gunships can be seen converging on the apartment building. Those ships first appeared in the Clone Wars Season 5 and have appeared in several Star Wars stories since. Private Weems returns to the Yavin Base after first appearing in Rogue One. Admiral Raddus also returns, still portrayed by Stephen Stanton, who voiced the character in Rogue One and also voiced Grand Moff Tarkin and Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars Rebels. Raddus mentions General Merrick being gone. I was bummed they couldn't get Ben Daniels back for a little cameo. Blue Leader was one of my favorite characters in Rogue One. Senator Tenra Pamlo also appears as part of the rebellion. She was the senator from the planet Terrace, first seen in Rogue One. She is joined by Senator Noer Jebel of the planet Uter. He continues to be a real Debbie Downer about literally everything. While he isn't seen, Tivik gets a couple mentions. He was Cassian's contact on the Ring of Kafrene at the very start of Rogue One. Major Partagaz listens to Nimic's manifesto in his final scene, lamenting that he couldn't stop its spread. This also goes back to his insistence that the ISB should be viewed as a health provider, looking for symptoms of rebellion. The final minutes of the series is a montage where we catch up with several characters. We can see Melshi jogging with a group of rebels, including Pow, the Drabadan rebel who joins the mission to Scarif in Rogue One. We also see Dedra has now been imprisoned on Narkina 2, as specified by the StarWars.com episode guide. But those are all the major Easter eggs and references I caught. Let me know what I missed in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Andor coverage, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.